In the past, nothing has caused more vehement disagreement and controversy than our videos on the greatest empires in history. It turns out that some of you can't agree on, well, anything really. So to resolve the debate once and for all, we've put together a list of 10 empires that came the closest to world domination. For this list, we've defined world domination as both direct and indirect control over a majority of the Earth's population. What this means is that in order to qualify for this list, an empire would not need to control all of the world's landmass. It would just need to have come close to taking control of a majority of the Earth's population, while having the potential to influence the rest of the Earth. Coming in at number 10 is the Portuguese Empire. When most people think about massive colonial empires, Portugal often doesn't come to mind. But the fact is that Portugal for a brief moment had a chance of becoming a global empire that would have been on par with the British Empire we all know from history. Portugal was actually the first European nation to seriously commit to colonial exploration, and they were the first European power to discover India, Sri Lanka, Japan, Brazil, and many portions of Africa. In East Africa, Portuguese forces conquered Mozambique, and in South America, Brazil was incorporated into its colonial empire. And during the height of the Portuguese Empire, Portugal established trading ports at far-flung locations ranging from India to Arabia, Malaysia to China, and even Japan. As a result, Portugal dominated not only the trade routes between Asia and Europe, but also much of the trade between different regions of Asia itself. It's impressive that Portugal managed to establish such a powerful global empire at such an early time in history. In many ways, if Portugal hadn't declined after the 1500s, it's very possible they could have amassed an even larger empire than the British Empire were able to obtain later in history. If Portugal had maintained total control over their Asian trade routes, the Portuguese Empire would have been the richest empire in all of history. It's probable that this enormous wealth could have financed conquests of India, Africa, China, South America, and the rest of the world. Number 9 is the Timurid Empire. The Timurid Empire was a nomadic empire that grew into prominence after the disintegration of the Mongolian Empire. The Timurids controlled vast swaths of territory in the west of Turkey, Iran, the Caucasus, Mesopotamia, India, as well as much of Central Asia. Unlike the Mongols, whose conquests far outstripped their ability to govern, the Timurid Empire arose in the early 1400s, where technology had advanced to a point where communications within massive empires could be maintained, but also hadn't developed to the point where civilized armies could meaningfully oppose them. Tamerlane, who was both the founder and absolute ruler of the Timurid Empire, envisioned a restoration of the Mongol Empire of Genghis Khan. His rapid rise to power was mainly due to the fact that no other force on the planet could defeat his armored horse archers. Tamerlane routinely defeated both Arab and Indian armies alike, but what put Tamerlane on the verge of world domination was his plan to attack the Ming dynasty in China. Conquering the population and resource-rich Ming dynasty would have put the Timurid Empire close to controlling a majority of the Earth's population. Tamerlane, however, died before ever reaching China, but had he survived, it's very likely the Timurid Empire would have been on the path toward world conquest. Number 8 is Nazi Germany. Some historians have concluded that if Hitler had made a few different decisions, he would have won the Second World War, which undeniably would have handed Germany a chance at world domination. Perhaps if Hitler hadn't declared war on Russia prematurely, won the African campaigns, or successfully invaded Britain through Operation Sea Lion, Nazi Germany could have become the undisputed master of the planet. As a result, the Middle East, India, and the entire African continent would have fallen to German control. A slightly different version of history could have seen Hitler controlling half of the world's population, while maintaining his empire with a vast communications network and a fleet of jet aircraft that no other nation could have opposed. In actual version of history, Hitler had already created a system of alliances that put the modern European Union to shame. Under Hitler's guidance, various European nationalities all fought towards the same goal. These included Romanians who fought alongside Hungarians, Germans alongside Italians, along with Bulgarians, Slovakians, Croatians, and Finns. This level of European unity was like none ever seen before, and could have easily paved the way for a German-led European superstate. In many ways, World War II was the last time in history that the empires of the world could have had a chance at world domination, and Nazi Germany was uniquely poised, albeit for a brief time, at achieving that. Coming in at number 7 is the Spanish Empire. During the absolute height of the Spanish Empire during the reigns of Charles V and Philip II of the House of Habsburg, the Spanish Empire had dominion over what was left of the Portuguese Empire, the Netherlands, the Austrian Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, as well as Spain's continent-spanning colonial holdings. For a brief moment in history, Dutch, German, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese armies all marched under the same banner towards a goal of European domination. This collection of allied states was a very unique moment in history, and if the Spanish had not been defeated on the battlefield, it's likely they could have reached even greater heights of power. The Spanish Empire for a time had the most gold, the best fleets, the best armies, and controlled more than 13% of the world's landmass. What gave the Spanish Empire a unique shot at world domination was that they had the potential to maintain control over large swaths of territory thanks to superior communications technology, unlike the Mongols. This ability is evidenced by the fact that much of Spain's colonial territory remained under Spanish control for centuries. Unfortunately, though, the Spanish Empire declined in power as it was undermined by a string of military defeats and rampant inflation coming from the vast amounts of gold extracted from Spanish colonies. And number 6 is the Mongolian Empire. It cannot be denied that the Mongolian Empire probably came the closest to world domination. During its rise, no other force on the planet could compete with the tactics of the Mongolian armies. And if the Mongolians had desired to, it is very possible that they could have swept into Europe, conquered it, and beheaded the Pope, all before the year 1300. But instead, the Mongolian Empire's greatest achievement became its greatest weakness. Despite Mongolian attempts to administer their massive continent-spanning territories and to tolerate the diverse races and religions of their subjects, the Mongolian Empire quickly fractured after Genghis Khan's initial conquests. Because despite the Mongolian Empire's power on the battlefield, the logistics to maintain the communication across a racially diverse 33 million square kilometer empire simply did not exist in the year 1279. Still, the Mongolian conquerors managed to control over 22% of the world's landmass, stretching all the way from China to the edge of Poland, and 1 out of every 4 people on the entire planet lived under Mongolian rule. Meaning that for a brief moment, the Mongolian Empire came very close to world domination, and had things been different, it is very possible they could have achieved it. Number 5 is the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was a Turkish empire that ruled over the Middle East, North Africa, Turkey, and the Balkans. Throughout its life, the Ottoman Empire routinely conquered countless kingdoms and countries. Perhaps their crowning achievement was the destruction of the Byzantine Empire in 1453, which finally brought an end to what remained of the once great Roman Empire. What made the Ottoman Empire unique was its talent for managing and overcoming the deep ethnic differences in the Middle East and in the Balkans. This in and of itself was a major achievement, as few empires in history have maintained control over such a bitterly divided region, let alone for centuries as the Ottomans did. The Ottoman Empire was so powerful and so perfectly poised for world conquest that it even came close to conquering the European city of Vienna in 1683, which is located deep in the heart of Europe. The Ottoman conquest of Vienna was only averted at the last second when a Polish relief force arrived just before the city fell, and the siege was broken after the Ottoman army was routed. If the siege of Vienna had gone in the Ottomans' favor, it is very likely that much of Europe could have fallen under their dominion. And, as mentioned previously, the Ottoman Empire was very talented at administering a multiracial empire, which would have proven very helpful if they had been able to expand into Europe. Instead, at its greatest height, the Ottoman Empire only controlled 3.5% of the world's landmass, and was finally dissolved in 1923. Number 4 is the United States. Many would argue that the United States is actually the closest any country has ever come to world domination. Today, the United States has military bases on every continent except Antarctica, along with countless puppet governments that take their orders from Washington. In the comment section of part 1 of this video, many of you disagreed on whether the United States qualified as an empire or not. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines an empire as, quote, a group of countries or regions that are controlled by one ruler or government, especially one ruled by an emperor or empress, end quote. While the United States has never had an emperor, it still does qualify under the first part of this definition, as the U.S. over its lifetime has annexed numerous sovereign nations, such as the Philippines, Puerto Rico and Cuba, which were once part of the Spanish Empire, and the sovereign kingdom of Hawaii. What most people don't know is that the United States reached its maximum extent after the conclusion of the Second World War in 1945, when U.S. occupation forces controlled Western Europe, Japan, Korea, the Caribbean, as well as most of Africa. The American occupation after World War II left the United States with a massive global empire that controlled major population centers, such as the Japanese home islands in Western Europe. This control over billions of people, a majority of the world's industrial base, along with an already mobilized army, gave the United States a chance to embark on a path towards world domination. But instead, the United States chose to release these nations from their direct control and went on to become the global superpower we all know today. And number 3 on our list is the British Empire. While it probably goes without saying, it's important to note that the British Empire was the largest in all of history. In 1922, the British Empire controlled 22.6% of the world's landmass and 20% of the world's population. What made the British Empire unique was its almost unassailable position of power. The British Empire controlled nearly all of the world's trade routes, and simultaneously possessed a nearly unbeatable army and the largest navy in the world. While it's up for debate as to how exactly the British Empire could have achieved world domination in the year 1922, when their empire was at its greatest extent, especially after it had been nearly bankrupted by the First World War, it cannot be denied that had the British Empire had the will, they could have extended their control over even more of the planet, making the British Empire one of the few empires to come within a breath of world domination. Coming in at number 2 is the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire that we all know from history actually came a lot closer to world domination than most people would believe. In fact, at the empire's absolute height in the year 117 AD, the Roman Empire controlled 21% of the entire world's population. During their height, the Romans incorporated most of Europe into their empire and also conquered North Africa, Turkey, and much of the Middle East. Roman armies were the best equipped and the most disciplined armies in the world and boasted extensive experience fighting all the exotic armies that the world threw at them. What brought the Roman Empire closest to world domination was their campaign against the Parthian Empire, which was a Persian state located beyond the Roman Empire's borders. But because the Romans never triumphed over their Persian rivals, despite attempting numerous times, they never were able to achieve true world domination. And number 1 is the Achaemenid Empire. More commonly known as the Persian Empire, this empire actually came closer to our definition of world domination than any other empire in human history. In fact, they missed our minimum cutoff by just 6% of the world's population. At the Persian Empire's absolute height, their subjects counted for about 44.48% of the entire Earth's population, meaning that in the year 480 BC, nearly 1 out of every 2 people on the planet was a Persian subject. Unlike other empires on this list, it was entirely feasible that the Persians could have surpassed this number. Instead, however, the Persian Empire had a series of costly wars with the Greek city-states and suffered a string of crushing defeats at crucial moments during their conflicts with the Greeks. Still, the Persian Empire was one of the earliest attempts in human history at a truly multinational empire. After the Persian Empire was dismantled by Alexander the Great, no other empire in history came as close as the Persians did to controlling a majority of the Earth's population.